We are now recording. So let me go ahead and throw out the first question that I have for you guys tonight. And that is simply, why do you think we have a hard time getting people to volunteer in the SCA?
I think a lot of it, and this is something that I've actually myself have been working on. I don't know how it is in a lot of groups, but I know in my local group, running over to Facebook or running over across email going, hey guys, I need about 5 people to help me with insert activity here. You're going to get crickets.
Yeah.
But if you walk up to it's like, hey, Kat, I'd really like your help to come and do the thing. Could you come, John, can you come do the thing? I'm going to get those 5 people so much faster by making it personal, reaching out, giving that sense of this person wants me and not giving the sense of I'm just a body.
Yeah.
On top of that, and I'm not sure if, this is kind of the same thing, is being cognizant of who you're tapping for what job. Because so many times we can get like these new people in who just have all this enthusiasm, and then we just like, oh great, here, do the thing. And they're kind of like, wait, you want me to do what? And it intimidates them, and it either sets them up for failure or completely scares them off. And so we've got to be careful with that too.
Agreed. Ivo next, and then Salvador after that.
I've got 2, and I'm not claiming these are major contributors. I think they can be, but these are factors I have personally run into. One is age. When I first started playing, the whole group was very active, and you never lack for volunteers. But the volunteerism rate from a bunch of single 20 and 30-somethings, for a host of reasons, parental responsibilities, health, other obligations, or just fatigue, is very different from a bunch of 40 and 50-somethings. So, like, I love to volunteer, I really do, but there are times I have to look at someone and go, I physically can't. I'm sorry. My back is killing me. And people are like, but how many people does that affect? And I'm like, dude, we were getting 4 for this project before. 2 is 50%. How many more do you need? And I think the other thing, this is one of those ones that I don't think it's going to come up until it does. Then when it does, it bites you in the ass, is when types of volunteerism go against the culture of the group. And the example I'll give was, there was one time I knew going into a particular event, no names used, where I was going to have trouble getting some volunteers. So before the event, I went out and I got 12 pounds of chocolate Hershey's Kisses. And I walked up to the first group of people I could, held up a bag and says, who wants chocolate? Problem solved. I mean, we had plenty of volunteers. My group, or the group, was not happy with me the following meeting because I didn't go to them first. And there were some, on their end, there were some hurt feelings. I simply got to exercise a few fingers, giving them a one-handed salute on that. But those are 2, I will throw them as contributions. I'm not claiming they're a majority share.
Gotcha. Okay, Salvador, and then Leo Flynn, and then Finn.
Okay, I'm going to start with saying that I come from a little bit of a different angle. I sponsor the campus club at Cameron. And I've done this in every single kingdom I've lived in because I'm a college professor. I get a group going on campus. And I think part of it is, of course, I've been playing since 1977. So this goes back a long ways. I don't think we are as good as our forefathers at getting the young people to feel comfortable. Because when I first joined, they made sure I was part of the family. And now I find myself doing a lot of interference with young people just to get them to show up and personally kind of hand-holding them. And so they're more likely to volunteer if I ask them, as opposed to if they're asked by anyone else in our barony. And so a lot of that, I think, has to do with, we need to make sure, as far as the newer people, that we keep not just pointing them out, but, you know, make them welcome in our homes and our lives. And they may not be the best friends with us in particular, but we'll find someone else for them to hang out with. Because again, if they feel part of it, they're more likely to say yes. If they're constantly being pushed off to the side or relegated to water bearing and serving feasts, And that's usually where they put all the new people. I like to take and deputize them and say, okay, tell you what, today you're going to help people at the list field. You're going to help people herald. You're going to help. And I usually pair them with someone who's done it before. And of course, I guess I was supposed to be one of the people co-autocrating King's College. That didn't happen. And I had a whole bunch of people lined up. But anyway, before that, I've done Samhain a couple times and done it that way, where I've just kind of paired up these young people that are teenagers or 20s and tried to make them feel comfortable enough to actually want to do it again. And so we do a lot of it. And actually, I think talking them into deputizing them on offices isn't that difficult then either, because then you go for, like, I just had 2 people volunteer to help our new marshal because they're both interested in fighting. And I said, this is a great way for you guys to learn more about it. And, Gerhardt's a very easily approachable person, so they're very excited. So I think we need to remember the culture is changed, and we're busy. A lot of us have played this for 20, 30, 40 years, and so we forget that they're bored and they want something to do, but they don't want to just be thrown under the bus. So anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Leo Flynn?
Well, those are very good points, and I also have been playing for over 40 years, not solid, just, off and on. But instead of saying, I need you to do gate and just giving them this is what you do, say, I need you to do this at gate, or I need you to do this on the field. And if you have questions, don't just ask the other people there. Come and get me. Come and get the higher next person up and actually say your name, possibly write it down. I made a suggestion on our little chat during the week that instead of just saying, okay, this is the job at Troll, and you need to do this, 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 and this. Give them in writing what all they need to do. And, break it down into easy sections, because it's for a non-newbie, it's scary to be told, okay, you need to handle the serving at the feast, huh? Or you need to do gate, or whatever. And also, I did mention, and this kind of goes with some of the things that the other folks were saying, there are people now that have been playing for 40, 50 years, and therefore there are cliques, and that's unfortunate. But for those of us that have never been part of a clique, that gets, well, no, I'm just going to sit over here and watch everybody. I'm not going to join in, because it's always, and there's 2 sides to that. It's always the same people that are doing this, and it turns out, oh, well, that's my job always. But, and so you get, well, I'd like to come and help. No, I always do this job. Okay. But so there's 2 sides of that. Can I help? Oh yeah, we want you to help. Okay. But we don't want you to do that. And we don't, and somebody else does this. And I'm sorry, I'm not really able to put it any clearer than that, but.
No, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, to me anyway. I've been developing a training for AARP about developing teams and developing volunteers on teams, because they're a volunteer organization as well. And a lot of the things that you're talking about are like the normal pitfalls that teams fall into, where it's like, well, so-and-so's always done that event. Well, then when a newcomer comes in and wants to do that event, they don't get to because so-and-so gets their nose bent out of shape because they didn't get to do it. So totally get what you're saying. Finn, I believe you were next, and then after that, Elizabeth.
Hello, I'm Finn, up here in the mid-realm. Some of the problems or some of the new things that I've seen with volunteering is doing the online volunteering systems. Like the autocrats or a coordinator would go onto a website, set up time slots for people, anything from royal retainers to gate, and people will go in and put their names in like weeks in advance. But you have people going to events who don't know what they're doing the next day that realize, oh, for a week to an event, and they want to help out. But all the slots have been taken, and they're like sitting there going, well, I don't fight, I don't do arts, but I like helping out, but there's nothing to do. It's one of the pitfalls that I've seen here. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to the lady who was just speaking. You see people habitually doing the same jobs, and they rush to put their names in, and it doesn't give the opportunity for new people or even people who've been in the SCA for a while who want to expand their service.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common. I mean, I think the rest of the Unstorians on here with me can say that they've seen that too. Thank you for sharing, Finn. Elizabeth.
Hi, I just autocrated our Yule in December, and I've only been in SCA for 3 years, but I'm 60 years old and I have a fair amount of life experience working in nonprofit groups and in the corporate entity working with young people as employees. I think that in this gig economy where a lot of young people cannot get a steady job with steady hours, it's very hard for them to commit to any kind of time frame. I tried the online signups because it was suggested that I do that. But I did better, like the other woman said, going up to each person and asking. And because I work with, I work with people for a living, I made it a point to ask some new people and some what I considered old guard to help me with this event. And everything played out fine because I just had somebody take point on each item that wanted covered, and then you just ask people when you're there, oh, can you help out with this? And then it all goes out, it goes just fine. I also found that with children, they're not children, with adults my children's age, they have a hard time showing up.
Some of them, yeah. The flakiness factor can
I'm
be
not
high.
going to use that term, but sometimes it applies. They have trouble showing up. I mean, when my kids have moved, say from one apartment to the next, or when they bought their first house, trying to get none of their friends showed up. I mean, my kids' parents are in their 60s and they're running up and down apartment stairs schlepping boxes because nobody shows up. It's, some of it's societal, some of it's their jobs, because it is hard for these kids to get jobs that give them any kind of consistency or straight hours to work with. So that was my 2 cents.
Thank you. Magdalena and then Ivo.
I'm sitting here taking notes. There's a lot that was said that I agree with, but there was a couple of things that I vehemently disagree with. I would never tell someone, don't ask the person next to you, come find me or my boss and only talk to us. To me, that facilitates isolating that person from learning from as many people as possible. My way isn't the only way to do something. If they're told, if they have a question and they're asking their fellow water bearer, they're asking their fellow gate person, and it doesn't feel like right information, then definitely, verify the information. But I would not feel comfortable ever telling someone, don't talk to anybody else but me when it comes to this job. That goes against everything I hold dear when it comes to communication, especially in the society. The other thing too is, and this is something I hear a lot and it's always put me on edge. There's nothing to do at events. Yes, there is. You may not have been able to sign up for a job, weeks in advance. You just realized yesterday that you have today off and you're going to go to the event. Walk up to the autocrat. Walk up to the kitchen help. I don't know a single cook who has turned away help. Not a single one. I haven't met a single water bearer who has turned somebody away. I have never met a single tear down, set up, ANS, anybody who has turned anybody else away. And so I really have a problem. And the problem with me is I hear it from people who've been in as long as I have, and I hear it from there's nothing to do. Then you weren't trying. I'm sorry. You were not trying. You wanted to sit around. You didn't get handed a job. And so now you're just going to sit here and say it's everybody else's fault. What did you do to try to solve the problem? We don't have it too terribly much in our group, but I have heard of some of the sagas with, so-and-so always does X event, and I don't know if it was a conscious effort on our end down here, but I do know that we're very cognizant of that. We will not let one person run an event back to back unless we absolutely positively do not have a choice. If we only get a bid from one person for 2 events back to back, I have known the conversations we have, like, hey, could you get somebody else to help run this with you so that you're not having to do these events back to back? I was looking at, before Armageddon, I was looking at putting together a bid for an event, and with the exception of myself and my co-autocrat, all the other department heads, they could not have a star of merit. They had to be below a star of merit. I wanted people who were new to the game. I wanted people who were, for whatever reason, possibly maybe being outshined or outworked by anybody else. I wanted them to be able to come to me and say, I want to do the job before Baroness, Knight, whoever took that job. I wanted it to be aimed at the department heads or all the young people, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I'm done.
It does, yeah, and I think that's a good strategy, and we'll talk a little bit later about mentor-mentee, which sounds similar to what you're doing. Ivo?
2 things. One, I want to piggyback off of, kind of build off something Magdalena said. Actually, 2 comments previously were both right. There's nothing to do, and there's always something to do. Those 2 statements can coexist, and this is going to sound self-serving because it is, but that's because, and I'm going to say it, if you freaking autocrats would learn to actually use the heralds more often. And I will give you a prime example. Gulf War, I guess about 14 years ago, my first one back. I volunteered, they put out there was an announcement at the Green Dragon to go help with Gate. Okay, cool, I get up there. I find out there's people that have been there for 14 hours, have not set up their tents. They've been there the whole time because they're not enough volunteers. And they're refusing to give up their post out of blind loyalty. God bless them. And these aren't healthy people. We're talking about 60 and 70-year-olds in some cases. So I walked up to the troll steward, and I said, could I borrow your golf cart for 20 minutes? What do you need the golf cart for? And I'm like, I'm a herald. I'm a voice herald from Mount Steora. Let me go do announcements. This is what I do. And she goes, she never even occurred to her, and she wasn't even really sold on it. She's like, I got nothing to lose. My people are dropping like flies. So I did the golf cart, and that story is a legend in itself. Long story short, we had 35 people walk the half mile up to Gate at my call. So, and that's because they were ready to go. We even had to turn a few people away, but we're like, come back when you're sober. We appreciate your enthusiasm. Come back when you're sober. And they were good sports about it. But my point is that metric of there's nothing to do is real, because leadership, and I'm using that term broadly, I'm not poking anyone in the chest, has a career side herald, I'll just say it. We don't freaking get used enough. And it pisses me off because I got volunteers that are willing to do it. We're willing to do the announcements. Now, off my soapbox, I apologize. The other big thing for volunteers, and this really plays into newbies, but also really plays into anyone who's volunteering, there is what's called a General George Patton School of Recruitment for an activity. And that's not the bullheaded Patton everyone remembers from the movie. If you look at the movie in detail, He put immense energy into praising his men. He showered compliments liberally when the job was done. And a lot of the times, historically, when something fell short, he was the first one to say, you did everything I told you, this is on me. When I'm getting site heralds or I'm getting list heralds, either or, I'm quick to tell them this is a critical job. It's simple. That doesn't make it easy. I'm going to give you a lot to do, and I'm going to recognize it's a lot of hard work. And when they're done, I want to, at golf, I'm like, give me the name of your peer. Give me the name of your baron. I'm going to handwrite a letter. Is it a lot of extra work? Yes, I'm not going to lie to you. It sucks, especially for a guy whose hands cramp like I do. But you can't type in the middle of golf. I write
True.
those by
True.
hand.
Okay.
Shower praise. It's not just a matter of blanket encouragement. It's make them feel important. When you tell a 15-year-old who's never list heralded before, look, you're the master of ceremonies. You're the person that sets us apart from the soccer tournament down the street. You follow my lead. You do what I tell you to do, and it's going to come out great. They're going to feel freaking important in the middle of that, and that's what keeps them coming back.
So Ivo, that is a great segue into one of our other questions, because our next question is, do you think that lack of recognition for their efforts makes people less likely to volunteer? And I'm not just talking about awards with this. I'm talking about a simple thank you.
Yes.
Want to
It
say
How many
anything
times?
else?
Yes, there is. And this is coming from somebody who, like you, volunteers for everything and anything that needs to be done. When you volunteer and somebody takes the 2 moments to say, you know what, I couldn't have done this without you. Thank you for stepping up. Or they've come to you and asked you to help and they thank you. Nothing shuts down a volunteer faster than asking them to come help, nitpicking what they did, and not even giving them a, hey, I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you very much for stepping up. That is one of the biggest reasons I stopped helping in certain areas, because it was an expected, never a thank you. It was always nitpick. So I moved on to other areas that needed help. And nothing thrills me more than for someone to say, you know what? Thank you. It was a long day, but thank you.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference. So, yeah, I don't need an award. Most people don't. But in today's society, there is a lot of self-gratification that needs to be stroked. I don't know how else to put it. The younger generation is all about instant gratification. So for most people, thank yous are just fine. I find that if I can keep something little largesse in my pocket, somebody who went out of their way, who I didn't even ask, but went out of their way, came over, helped me, I can give them something that says, this is from me. Thank you. I couldn't have done that for whatever reason. And it makes a difference. It makes a difference. And like Ivo said, at Gulf Wars, oh my God, volunteers are your lifeblood. And if I get one or two or several, I try to find out who is their knight, or who is their pelican, or who is their laurel, or who is their whoever's mentoring them, because I want word to get back to them. You know, they need to know that this person is doing really well.
Yep, I agree.
So,
and
okay.
I do that too, what you were talking about with having largesse. A lot of times I'll just wear like a bracelet on my arm or a ring or something that I know is something, you know, that wasn't maybe necessarily cheap, but that I don't mind parting with, because to me it means more when I take that off and hand it to them.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Interesting footnote. Do you know where
John?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. John is next, and then Finn, and then Ivo.
Sorry.
You're fine.
So to basically what feeding off of what Cal was saying, and this comes from two places. One, you've probably seen articles go around, why good people leave jobs. And it's for a lot of what she was saying, is that recognition does matter.
Mhm.
When people feel that their presence is validated, that they're valued, they're much more likely to stay. But if they feel micromanaged and nitpicked like she was talking about, yeah, those people are looking for the exits. And I, in addition to SCA stuff, I'm in this weird place. I do filmmaking. I'm kind of in the weird between amateur and professional. So I pay people, but it's only like $10 an hour. So it's not really enough to like, but it's enough to at least give them some recognition. So I really have to manage when you talk about getting volunteers, getting cast and crew. You've got to look at what is the currency that you're paying them, which a lot of times it's not the money, but it's, are you appreciating what they do? When they make suggestions, even if they're not the right suggestions, at least saying, I'm going to go in a different direction, but I do see the value in what you're saying. You are welcome here. You are valued. Your contribution is meaningful. And if you can use as much positive reinforcement once you've got them in, or even beforehand, because that's the other thing is reputation. If you have a reputation of, you're in the film world, okay, you're going to be a dictator and you're going to be chasing your actress and you're going to be, running down your DP. That word gets around fast, and then people aren't going to work with you. But if you've gone up front to make sure that you are treating people well, and people, there's that word of mouth, then that's going to help bring you the volunteers. It's like, if I go volunteer for that person or for this group, they're gonna respect me. They're gonna appreciate me. Okay, yeah, I'll go help them. So
Yep.
that's what I had.
Makes sense. Finn?
Some of the things that I've done with smaller events is after the event, during the postmortem, do a write-up of everything that went well and name people who helped out. Do that publicly. Not just the one-on-one is great instant validation for their help, but basically it's coming from the rooftops that this person helped and they did a great job, especially if they're not from your own group. That gives their group a heads up. Hey, this person is doing an awesome job, not only for us, but for other people. And if that person is being looked at for something, that just adds more items to that list to make it even better.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime I autocrat or feastocrat or run a tavern or do anything, I try to, just a couple days after, post that big long thank you and tag people if I can so that everybody sees it, because they need everybody to know what they did, not just, me to know, because they gave their time to help me. So, Ivo?
To build on what was already said, and kind of a historical comment on something you said, Katerina. Historically, take advantage of the act of interacting with someone for a thank you. It's one thing to say thank you, and it's another thing to say here is a trinket, which trinkets are fine. I'm not dismissing trinkets, but you can take advantage of the opportunity to give that trinket very serious meaning. Something I learned from history class, the word booty as relates to loot or valuable items actually, I believe, comes from Old Norse. And it comes from, that was the word used to describe the rings Scandinavian chieftains would wear around their neck as a necklace. And they would pay people by breaking chunks of the necklace off and handing over booty, which is plural of boot, ring. So if anyone's looking for for example, really, but it's not just that it's something cool to give, but you can in that moment say, this is how the Scandinavians paid their people in periods. So now this person's getting a tangible thank you and a bit of history and oh wow, this is cool. And even if I'm a jerk by necessity of the job, I mean, I've been accused of that when I'm heralding, I'll just own it. I've had people go, okay, that was really intense. I never necessarily want to work with him again. But what he gave me was really cool. How do I learn more about this? So, and I'm not saying that's an excuse. I'm saying that that's how powerful a redeeming virtue that the story is, the item. And last but not least, whatever you do with your trinket, if it's something they can put in their pocket and forget about in 10 seconds, it's not worth the time to give. I'll just say it. I've seen too much largesse, which looks cool for 4 seconds, but by the count of 5, they're bored again and it has no value. That's why I stopped giving out the little stuff, because it didn't do anything for them and it didn't do anything at all.
Yep, makes sense. Magdalena and then Salvador.
Had the opposite reaction to tokens. I didn't start doing tokens until a couple of years ago. Anybody who knows me at all well knows I have a thing about owls. And so I went and bought like this entire huge bag of all these just different shapes, sizes, colors of owls. And if I know I'm going to be running gate, or I'm going to be a department head of anything, I'll put together a little bag with treats. And sometimes it's a bag of water. Sometimes it's like those peanut butter cracker things. Maybe sometimes it'll be a sweet. I've gotten away from it, but it's something I want to get back to. But I'll also tie my little token to it. There have been times, actually, Bjornsberg's Valkerfelt, I think, that happened late last summer. There was a girl there. I'll never forget this. She was just everywhere. And she was always had a smile on her face. You could tell she was completely overheated and she was just pushing herself way too much. But like again, she still had a smile on her face and was kind of like, yes, I'll go do the thing. And you can tell she was exhausted. So finally one day, after a while, I was like, I need you to sit down for a minute, please. And she's like, I need you to sit down for a minute, please. And so she sat down and you could tell she was tired. And I wanted to cheer her up, and so I gave her a thing of water. And I realized she was wearing a Viking apron, but she had nothing. No beads, no nothing. She had the brooches. I pulled one of mine, God knows I wear a ton of them, and I just kind of reached blindly. I wasn't even paying attention, and what I pulled off was actually a string of beads that a really good friend of mine had given me 20 years ago, who has since passed. She was a huge worker, much like this, and unfortunately I don't remember her name, and because I'm horrible about names. And I was like, this was meant to go to you. And I gave her a brief story of what that meant to me, and she just broke down in tears. And it's so funny because ever since this has happened, I see her online going, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and she's just like the internet version of just go, 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 go. And whenever I see her in garb, she's wearing that thing of beads. And so I think it's great. Finding something that will fire someone up, whether it's small or whether it's big or whether it's consumable or whatever. The other thing that I'm really glad for Facebook, which is probably one of the only things I'm really glad for Facebook, is like what Kat said. I love reading all the names. Nothing irritates me more than, and thanks Dina and her staff for running gate. Seriously? No, that is not acceptable, especially if I gave you the names. Don't do that. It wasn't about me. It was about them. They actually had to get into the trenches. Give them their 5 seconds. Good Lord, it drives me nuts. And there have been times, and Ivo, don't yell at me. There have been times I've given names to heralds, and I'm like, hey, when you do the thing, can these are some really cool moments that happen. Could you do the thing? Nothing. And I get that courts are a thing, time management, but it's kind of like, we couldn't have taken 2 seconds. It was like 5 names, really? Okay,
Right.
So
right.
Recognition is huge for me. Being able to give the people something tangible, and well, I guess not tangible, but just that fire, that spark of, yes, I want to keep doing this. it's going to keep them coming back, and it's going to work in our favor because we're going to get a hard worker, we're going to get the retainage, and they're probably going to bring their friends in because their friends are going to be like, where are you every weekend? And it's everybody wins.
Yep.
And I'm off my soapbox now.
Nope, totally agree. Salvador, can you tell us a little bit about Eldern's Thank You Court? Because I think probably not a lot of people are familiar with that.
Actually, when I moved here 11 years ago, I thought it was a big surprise to me. I've lived all over the place and never seen one. Their Excellencies hold a court. It's during our normal business meeting. I always get a special room because I reserve the rooms on campus. And we get a nicer room and we decorate. We get it for a little bit longer, about an hour longer than we normally would for a meeting. Everyone who was in charge of something will bake cookies, make trinkets, whatever, and call up every single person who volunteered for them and thank them, and their Excellencies thank them, and then we applaud and cheer.
That is so awesome.
So that every single person, and we beg people, I've even gone picked people up to bring them to Thank You Court because we think it's that important that they get recognition, because especially our new people that are like, oh, I just helped a little bit, I didn't do anything. No, you helped. It was amazing. You don't realize how much stress you took off of someone else because you helped. And so I think it's a really cool thing, and I would love to see this happen more places. I don't know who started it in Eldern or why it started in Eldern, but like I said, I've been here 11 years and I think it's amazing. We have on occasion combined two events when they're close together and done one Thank You Court for both events. We did that with when we did fiber arts. We combined it with Samhain because we were tripping over ourselves with getting everything ready, so it was just easier to put it after the two of them. But it works really well, I think, and we also do a potluck at the same time. So in the back of the room is food, people can eat. They have thank yous. Everyone dresses in garb. It's an official thing, and it's really nice. I enjoy it a lot. So.
Yeah, I thank you. I love that so much, and I've actually thought about bringing it up to our Baroness and Baron in Namron because, we do sometimes, like Magdalena said, want for those people to have their names set in court. But if it's a baronial event, there may not be time because there's too many awards. If it's a kingdom event, same thing. And then, that kind of serves a lot of purposes because maybe there's newcomers that come to your pop meetings, but they don't come to events. Well, they get to see a court now because you're having a court at a meeting. So yeah, like win-win.
The only thing that's sad, of course, is how do you handle that at the non-baronial level? For shires, cantons could be handled through the barony, but for a shire or something of that nature, I mean, you have to have some sort of official presentation. I think could still work, but it wouldn't be necessarily a court. Yeah,
if they were comfortable with it, the seneschal could run that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So with some conversation, barons and baronesses are with permission can be the voice of the crown. So
yeah, court as well. So yeah, if you had a court baron or baroness in that group, they could do that also. So yeah. Cool. Thank you guys so much for sharing about all of that. So let's see, I'm trying to decide where I want to go next. Okay. Go ahead, Eleanor, and then we'll move on to the next question.
Some jobs attract more volunteers than other jobs naturally because, they use a wider variety of skill sets or they're not gross. How do you get volunteers for the gross jobs that nobody wants to do?
Such a good question because we call it sanitation now or site maintenance rather than nasty crap, but no one wants to do nasty crap. What do you do to get people to do nasty crap? Because it's nasty.
You never asked me. I love doing nasty crap.
Oh, I have asked you. And
Are you going to Braggart's War?
Yes, and I'm running parking. So I'll have time to do nasty crap later.
I'll send you a PM.
Yay!
Okay.
We actually...
Go ahead, Salvador.
We actually try to get, we call it potty crat. And we actually, I mean, it makes it a little more appealing. And we actually usually deputize someone who's never done it with someone who has done it, and they try to make it fun. And
That's
of course,
smart.
there's a lot of jokes and stuff like that. I actually did potty crat at both of the fiber arts. So it was just, and I took around one of our youngest current members who is currently 18. So, and he was my deputy. So it was just walking around and telling him this is what you do, and you knock on the ladies' room and make sure no one is in there before you, open, and make sure, ask them if you need anything in there. Do we need more toilet paper? Is it dirty? Do I need to go in there? And it was great. So I think if you make it a positive thing, and it is, gross. I mean, it's gross, but if you make it a positive thing and just try to keep a positive note about it, I think helps.
So that is actually a really good segue, Salvador, into another question that I have on my list. So what can we do to make volunteering more fun and more appealing? Like a lot of times I play music in the kitchen when I do a feast, and it's not SCA music, it's modern dance booty music, so that we can all be in there and be silly and have a good time. So what are the things that we can do to make volunteering less like a second job and more just hanging out with your friends? You guys were full of stuff earlier.
Couldn't it be both?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it is still going to be a job, right? Obviously.
Right.
But how do you make it more fun? Lillis?
Putting that in there because I think I had to stop and think for a minute about why would it not be fun, and kind of backtrack that, because my experience volunteering in the SCA has always been that it's almost always been fun. Is letting people know in advance that it can be fun, and these are not jobs, they are a chance to make things better, and the many hands make light work. If you volunteer for just a little bit to come hang out and make sure everyone's having a good time by doing X, then you get to help out, everyone's grateful, and everyone gets to have a better event. Because at water bearing, I mean, and it kind of depends on how you sell what the jobs are. Water bearing is walking up to, Sir So-and-so and saying, you need to drink this. So the only time you get to order nights around is when you're telling them to drink water. Not specifically, I'm always polite, but that part of what makes the job fun, or if that's not, somebody doesn't like to go out and talk to a lot of people, maybe you sell them on Nasty Crat, especially when you let them know that that does not mean they have to plunge things. If it gets gross, we're calling a plumber. They don't have to do that. They just have to report it. They're checking soap. They're checking toilet paper. They're making sure we have stuff. They are not the one who has to do the dirty work necessarily. Yeah. And if they volunteer for one shift on that, it takes like 15, 20 minutes, or less to circle a whole site and check on the stuff. And then they go about their way. When you remind everybody that if everyone does a little bit, no one gets stuck doing a lot and hating it, it just tends to go well. Because most people, especially the new generation, no one wants to see anybody else not having fun. They're actually very, very, group-minded, which has been the fortunate thing. In Moonshadow, we've always had so many college students that's where a lot of our work has been able to come from, because they're really eager to help. And they have lots of free time. So you sell them on it, you make it fun. I mean, feasts, I say feast help is always the fun part, because everyone loves to play around in the kitchen, and listen to the music. And if you feed people for any job, it doesn't matter what job, as long as you feed people, they'll come.
That is true. And I always keep wine and beer and other stuff for, after we're done with feast, I'm like, okay, we're done. Yay. Here,
for the health
have a
that's,
beverage.
of age.
Exactly. Of course.
We get a lot of underage help.
Right. Salvador, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I want to talk about a little bit about what John wrote here. I actually, at every Samhain, have taken, and I have a little booklet I create, and it's for all the newcomers, and it's a competition. They actually volunteer, and someone at that spot signs off saying this person volunteered. And then at the end of it, I give out prizes. And last time I handed out a handmade cloak that I made for the winner. And then I also handed out some smaller stuff. I handed out pouches. I handed out board games. I like to make things like Nine Man Morris and Fox and Geese and Albuquerque and stuff like that. And I put the instructions in there so they know how to play the game. And I hand those out, and everybody gets something. And
That's awesome.
And then the winner gets the cloak, or that's what it was last time. The other thing is pair them up. Pair up people, new people, if they or pair them up with someone who's already done it. Maybe not as, you know, one of the ancient people, but maybe someone who's been there a little bit longer, and it makes it fun for them. They have someone to talk to. Maybe they're heralding together and running around yelling "Oyez" together. You know, and like I said, you kind of can piggyback these different things on top of each other to try to get them to want to do it. Really, that's what you want to do. You just want to get them to the point where they actually want to do this and they're volunteering. They got helium hand. So,
Yep.
And yes, I have a lot of young people that I supervise.
But that's good. That's good. Yep. Okay, so any other thoughts on ways to make it fun? I like the bingo idea. Online, we had talked about, you know, how at Gulf Wars, if you've ever been, they have the above and beyond table, you know, doing something like that, maybe on a smaller scale for your smaller events, where if people volunteer, you know, X number of hours or whatever, they get to go get something from the table. So Eleanor and then Finn.
I make an effort to bring snacks, gluten-free, vegan snacks that everyone can eat.
That's great. Definitely. Food goes a long way.
Yes, and people come to the volunteering area if there's food at it.
Absolutely. Finn?
Being excited about your job. You're asking somebody to be excited about theirs. I know sometimes it's a grueling day, and if you're going to ask somebody to help you out, at least have a good attitude about yours.
Definitely. That makes a big difference. And if, you know, when they come to see you and you're running gate, you're, oh, I'm so excited to see you here. And, you know, thank you so much for coming to help. Or if your attitude is, oh, God, I just can't wait to get out of here. They're not going to have a good attitude about it either, because why should they? Your attitude as a leader makes a big difference. Okay, let's see. What else can we?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, sorry about cutting out on you. If this was already said before, I apologize. But on the item of making it fun, I think making it important and emphasizing the accomplishment will also, there are certain people where that's more important than it being fun. You have to read your audience, of course, but I know people where, okay, it was fun, that's all right, and they enjoyed themselves is okay, but the idea that they went out, busted their butt, probably hated the work, but they got something done, that engages them. Like, they want to come back because the accomplishment is what keeps them coming. That's not an everyone statement by any stretch of the imagination, but I know the demographic exists.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And you do have to read your audience in that case, for sure. Okay, so I mentioned this a little bit before about my training that I've been working on with the AARP. And one of the things that they talk about is when you're getting volunteers involved, when they're, you know, fairly new to volunteering, don't ask them to run the whole event. Just ask them to take a little piece of it. So maybe they're handing out the snacks at the event, or maybe they're sitting at the registration table and, you know, registering people. And then once they've gotten that little taste, you know, maybe they'll be more likely to volunteer for bigger things. So with that being said, do you think that we in the SCA ask newcomers to take on too much responsibility too soon, which then burns them out on volunteering? Salvador?
I think sometimes, yes. I've seen it happen where they've asked new people because they're so energetic and they seem to be willing to throw themselves at it. We automatically say, oh God, look, this was a keeper, and you just keep throwing stuff at them because they do it, and you forget that it's easy for them to burn out. The ones that are hesitating, the ones that are quiet, we don't tend to ask them as much. But those aggressive ones, those ones that are outgoing and they try really hard and they've already thrown themselves in, I think we tend to rely on them too much early on, and we burn them out. And I think, yes, we do both.
Agreed. Lillis, were you next? Sorry, I was looking away. Go
fine.
ahead.
I was saying I agree. It's kind of intermittent, and it depends on what kind of jobs you're throwing at them. Because I've seen some groups where what they throw at them is exactly, what newcomers are great for, which is dabbling in everything. Assist with event stuff, or at a meeting with, supplies, or, whether that's water bearing, trying out heraldry, trying out list mistressing, basic jobs. But I've seen some groups where somebody's new and they're forward and kind of as Salvador said, they're really into it, and we end up throwing something at them like offices. And some of them are ready for that because they have the skills, and some of them put themselves forward really well, but are not in fact ready. And that's when we see burnout with them, is if they think they're ready, they act confident, they're sure they can do whatever it is, and then they don't get the support that they need because then they don't ask. Because when they realize they don't know, well, now they've put themselves forward, and then they don't want to suddenly be like, well, but I don't actually know how to do this. And it puts people in a position where they might fail.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, Magdalena, and then Finn, and then Kel.
I agree with pretty much everything everybody said, but I also feel that us, as not only people who have been playing for a lot longer, but people who are also leaders, we need to be able to say, I really appreciate your enthusiasm, but you did X, Y, and Z last week. I need you to do A today. And that's it. They want to run out and get an office. You know what? That's fantastic. I think you'd be great in that office. Let's put you as deputy first.
Yeah.
They're not going to know what they don't know. We do. And if we allow the new people to do that, we have failed them. We did that. They didn't do it. We did it. And we have to be able to look at someone and say, I really appreciate your enthusiasm, and I understand you're coming from a good place. I'm trying to get you to understand that I want you to be here this time 10 years from now.
Yeah.
So that's also very important. And also on top of that, and this is a slightly harder issue, when you have someone who comes to you like, I really want to do X, Y, and Z, and I have this plan and I have that plan and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, okay, but I asked you to do X, Y, and Z last time, and at the last minute you flaked out on me. I don't want to discourage people from working and from helping and from contributing, but at the same time, you have to be aware of that this person, their heart is absolutely in the right place, but life is crazy right now. We never know what's going to happen. And once, maybe twice, I understand, but when it becomes a consistent thing, start percolating in the back of your mind. It's like, okay, what's a job I could have this person do that if it were to fall flat on its face, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the overall whatever, By the way, those jobs are almost non-existent. But so there's a fine balance of being able to find the people who you've got to hold back, and then find those people that you really want to push them a little bit further along because they have the potential if they would just get out of their own way.
Yeah.
So it's a balance.
What you're saying about, people that flaked and then they come wanting to do something again. AARP actually talks about that, and they talk about, have them work with someone that you can trust, and then if they flake again, at least it happens, but you've given them the chance. And maybe if they're mentored by someone, they won't flake. Maybe they flaked because they were like, oh, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So
exactly. And I'm scared. I'm scared to ask for help. I'm scared to look like an idiot or whatever. It's like nothing is that dramatic. Just say help and we'll be on it. So
right. Agreed. Finn, and then Kel.
In my group, we have a lot of more mature newcomers coming into our area, into our group, and a lot of them have had prior experience in other nonprofit organizations or other other types of jobs. When it comes down to it, there's very few positions that we have that they should be afraid to fail in. Now, the only two that really are that have a tighter grip on things that you can't really let them fail, but are Exchequer and Seneschal. And even Exchequer, at least here in this kingdom, we have the quarterly reports that are the important ones, but they report every month. So if there's a problem with one of those middle ones, it can be fixed before the quarter. So having people comfortable with, like, okay, I failed, this is how I fix things and move on. And the same thing with our younger folks, like coming out of college, they most likely don't have a job, but this is one way for them to get the experience to put on a resume. And it's fun, it's low threat. If they don't make it, oh well, it's not, there's no repercussions toward them. Unlike in a regular job, if they fail on something, they will pay for it. And with us, we have enough, there's a large enough safety net that we can pick them up, dust them off, show them the proper way to do it, where they went wrong, and have them try again. But just getting our newcomers, our members, comfortable with that idea.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of that where somebody has to do a job and they're like, well, you haven't been in this group long enough for us to do that, but the person's been in 7 kingdoms.
Right.
And we have that. I've seen that with myself and other military members. They're bouncing from group to group, and they're looked at as like, oh, you're here for 2 years, we're not going to invest in 2. But, or same thing with college kids or college students. They're there for 4 years, and then they're gone. But given that opportunity, given that experience, let them grow. It brings new ideas to your group, and everyone grows from that. That's all I got.
Yep, I agree. John, I'm going to let you go real quick because he has to go to work, and then Kel, and then Ivo.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm on a call. I've got just a few minutes, and then I have to leave the meeting completely. Thank you. So the suggestion, I put it into the chat, and it would take some management, is that, like in Bringla, we've got to bring a newcomers academy that I'm very proud of my barony for that. But I think what you could do if you've got a newcomers academy or similar structure, you get new people in and say, okay, here's your volunteer bingo card. Okay, and you've got a list of jobs that that are on your card. And because you're a newcomer and you're trying to fill out your card, when it comes to volunteering for jobs, those newcomers with those bingo cards have priority, or at least maybe not the highest priority, but they have a priority that's like, okay, we need to make sure that this person gets to do this job so they can fill their card out. And maybe they have, like, maybe you work gate 3 times or something, or whatever that card looks like. And then when they get their card filled, then there's some sort of reward, there's some sort of recognition publicly, like was being said before. And in the meantime, they've gotten experience in each one of these areas, and they've worked with all sorts of different people in the process of doing that. Now, that does take some management, at the whatever the level is, barony, kingdom, whatever. Somebody says, regardless of what it is, or whoever's the autocrat, autocrats, you pull from this list first of newcomers and make sure that they can fill out their bingo card. So I just wanted to jump in real quick and say that, and now I've got to get back to work. But thank you for letting me at least voice it. I appreciate it.
Here, dude.
Thank you for sharing. If you could send us a copy of one of those bingo cards so we could take a look at it, like post it
I don't
in the
have
group.
one. I just came up with it just now.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll have to play around with that then.
Yeah, I just had the idea just now. So, all right, I got to go.
Okay.
Thank you so
Bye.
much, folks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, we had Kel.
I think I think it's all been addressed, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It seems as it goes along, it seems to grow its own path. With volunteers, and I can't even remember now what the question was. I'm sorry. I'm on grandma time.
You're okay. What were we talking about? Oh, not putting newcomers into too much responsibility too fast so that they get burnt out.
I totally agree. Like he said, and I can't remember who it was, if it was Ivo or John, or it could have been Finn, or Salvador. One of them said, it was somebody in this group said, if they're loud and forbearing, they're going to get noticed and they're going to get asked to do these jobs. Granted, they may not know how to do that job, but at least they're willing to step up. And I like Katie's idea. Give them a deputy job. Give them an opportunity to learn to see if this is what they really want to do. Not all of us have military experience or post-military experience where we can step up into a leadership job should an emergency arise. But if you're more mature and you've had a job, you're going to know some of it. But the biggest thing I can't stress enough is garnering from your group the support you need to do that job. If you aren't willing to listen, filter in what you need, put the rest of it on the back burner or in a folder or in the round file, then you shouldn't be doing that job. Because if you're not going to listen, you're going to fail. Because there's always somebody who's done it who can help you do it better. Yep. Or help you do it if you've never done it.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Agreed. Thank you.
I'm done.
Ivo.
Let's see. Okay, you can hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just going to put this hat on and say an unpopular opinion, but as a former Northern Regional Herald and someone who's worked with 2 Northern Regional Heralds before and after that, the leading cause of burnout that we experienced was not overwork. It was insufficient training. If you're going to give someone a job, you owe it to them before they are committed to explain to them in detail with questions answered up front everything that job entails. When I train site heralds and I train list heralds, we're very clear about it's an hour commitment each time. You will be walking. You will need footwear. If you have knee problems, you're probably going to aggravate them. And I have scared people off with that. And it's not that I want to. It's when I'm done, they're like, I'm not sure I can do this. I'm like, dude, thank you for listening. I'm glad we caught this before you were in the middle of the road and collapsed. Every herald I had to remove as Northern Regional Herald were perfectly capable of doing the job. The trouble was they were perfectly capable of doing the other 6 jobs they volunteered for and weren't told about them before they put their name on a piece of paper. And you want to talk about groups that have burned out volunteers? There are groups that burned out officers. It's cultural. To be blunt about it, they come about it honestly. The groups that have good officer corps, however they do it, every group's different, they have a decent program that prepares their officers in large part for what they're jumping into. You don't typically see burnout as a reoccurring pattern. Groups where you see a reoccurring pattern of burnout, they have a different situation. So I take from that what you will. I'm not trying to point fingers, but pretending like this isn't on us for not preparing them right, I think is overlooking a lot of very well documented history.
Oh, yeah. I 100% agree with you. We kind of talked about it a little bit in the chat that we had going before we all got on this call tonight when I sent out the questions to you guys that, if you're not telling someone exactly what they're getting into and giving them the training that they need to do the job, you have failed. You can't just throw somebody into it and say, okay, sink or swim. And yet we do that a lot. And we've got to change that culture, because if we don't, I mean, yeah, okay, so one of your newcomers comes in and volunteers to be hospitaler, and then they get no training and they have no idea what they're doing and no one helps them. And are they going to volunteer to do another officer position? No way. They're not. They're done.
And what's likely going to happen, which has happened, is in 6 months to a year, they will be removed by Kingdom or Regional Hospitaler. They'll have a black mark over their head, and then even if they do grow up, or even if they are a perfectly capable officer, they'll never be considered for it again.
Yep.
And whose fault is that?
The people that put them in the position without the training.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I could do a soapbox. I promise I'm restraining myself.
No, I hear you. I'm right there with you. Salvador?
Yeah, I wanted to say I agree completely with Ivo. I mean, that's the point of our deputy positions. We need to get our deputies as soon as we take our office, so we have plenty of time to train people, and they have time to drop out if it's not them. I lost a deputy not that long ago because he realized he did not like the job. And I'm like, and he felt bad. And I said, don't feel bad. This is why you do this, because it would be worse if I was taking a deputy a month before I stepped down and said, here, it's yours. You know, that's the whole reason you take deputies earlier, to train them. And that's why I think that we should deputize people for pretty much everything we do. If it's autocrat, you need a deputy autocrat. If you're feastocrat, a deputy feastocrat, whatever that is, pottycrat, a deputy pottycrat, because they need to know what they're getting themselves into. And if they follow you around and learn the job at the event, or they're following you around throughout the year learning that position in the Shire, Barony, Riding, Canton, whatever province, it's prepping them. It's really prepping them, and they can make that decision hopefully before the time is up and say, yes, I really want to take over this office or this job. No, I don't want to do this ever again in my life. So, I mean, that's the whole point of us training them, and that's why I think deputy positions are valuable.
Yep, I agree. All right, guys. Well, we are at 8:12. So, Kel, go ahead, and then we'll wrap up.
Just something to pass on, to think about. There are people, and I am guilty of it, who will find a job that they really like to do, and they'll want to stay doing it. It's very important, and it took me a little time to accept this, that I needed to train somebody else so that I could go on to do something, another challenge. And we as mentors, as well as whatever position, need to recognize that.
Yeah.
Because you could stay in a job too long and then you've lost opportunities to learn something else, or you've gotten so complacent in the job, you're not doing it well. And then it looks bad on you.
Yeah,
so, or your
absolutely.
group. So,
Absolutely.
Anyway.
No, that's a good point. I agree. Definitely. You always want to be training the next person, because, you know, it's that whole hit by a bus theory, right? I was supposed to go and autocrat this event, and now I can't because I was hit by a bus and there's nobody else, you know, that knows what all is going on to pick up the pieces. So, yep. Elizabeth.
As a store manager, my favorite management model was to make sure everybody knew how to do everybody's job. And that way there was never a drop in service. And that's how I've always run what I've run, you know, as a store manager or whatever. Everybody's cross-trained.
Yeah, that's really smart.
That's why we had to write SOPs for Gulf Wars.
Yep. So somebody can come in and pick up if you can't be there. All right, guys. Well, like I said, it is about 8:15 now, so we have gone over our time. Anybody want to make any last parting shot statements before we sign off?
I enjoyed
hosting this.
Thank you for all of the advice.
You're welcome. Thank you guys
Yeah,
for
it was
coming.
awesome.
And I hope you had a good time and learned things. And we will definitely try to schedule more of these roundtable type discussions, because I think they're very beneficial. So
we need to get that bingo going.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
I love that idea.
I like that idea.
Definitely.
And you know, ideas are eligible for a thistle. Just saying.
There you go. Lilith, did
And
you
I
have
don't
something?
know if there would be interest for this, but could we not do 1 or 2, depending on how long it would take, classes specifically aimed at people on how to, not how to run all these things, because we've done a lot of how to run stuff, but like just, and you could do multiple in an hour, but how to be a volunteer, like what the actual jobs entail, so that when people go back to events, they know the basics of, if I volunteer to water bear, what will I be doing? If I volunteer to help gymnastic and the help level, what would I be doing?
I love that.
Yeah, I
Because
think
we
you could
have,
pair
go
them
ahead.
up.
Nights.
You could,
Salvador, did you have
pair,
something?
I was just say you could pair them up. So water bearing with maybe the list, you know, and pair them up that way. So you get similar ones. So you're not going to do an hour on water bearing, but
Right.
you could do 20 minutes on water bearing and 20 minutes, probably 30 minutes on list or whatever, and kind of pair them up so that you have a nice class and you're learning 2 sets of volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
No, that's great, because I was kind of feeling like we were starting to have run through most of the ideas that I had for classes for this, and that opens a whole new door, because it's a different level. It's not, okay, how do I run gate? It's, if I come and volunteer to do gate, what am I getting myself into? So I think that's great. Yes, ma'am, Elizabeth?
Well, that was my original question that I posed when you asked for questions for this group was, as a relative newcomer, I mean, I've been in for a few years, there were very few job descriptions. Well, I'll volunteer. What's it entail? And it was hard to get those types of SOPs.
We don't really have them. We need them. It would be great if we did, but you know, maybe that's something that we can start. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you know, I just thought about it. Why don't, before you do the event, have a description of all the different jobs so that people have an understanding of what they're going in before they get there? Because then they have a better way of being on the job and on the spot, and things will go smoothly. If you don't, they just like, oh my God, I'm gonna mess everything up. And
Yeah.
that's, you know,
Yeah.
so if they have an idea, because I'm a map person. I want to have a map to know where I'm going before I get there. I don't want to get lost.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know where you're going, it's a better chance you'll get there.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great idea. All right, guys. Well, I will post and see if I can get people to help us teach those entry-level type classes. Everybody, thanks for coming, and I hope you guys have a good night, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.